reaction. Joining our conversation now is Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. He led that first impeachment trial of the former president. You don't often get to differentiate between the different impeachments of just one-term president, but here we are. And we should say that we knew we had the chance to talk to you before we knew that Rudy Giuliani's home would be searched. So I know we're here to talk about bigger and better things, but first, your reaction to that raid.
Well, I guess what is disturbing to me is if there was probable cause to believe that there was evidence of a crime at the Giuliani's business or home last year and Bill Barr's Justice Department wouldn't do anything about it, it's another indication of politicization at the very top of the Justice Department. And we know that other decisions on sentencing, for example, with Roger Stone, or even dismissing whole cases against Mike Flynn, were made on the basis of politics by Bill Barr. And this appears to be yet another example. But I'm delighted to see that under the new leadership of that department, decisions will once again be made equally under the law. Everyone will be treated the same under the law. No one will be given a pass. No one will be pursued for political reasons. And I think Merrick Garland has exactly the right background for that approach.
I mean, I had the same sort of thoughts, and I pulled this article from the Washington Post last June 2020. Attorney General William Barr said Saturday that President Trump had fired the top federal prosecutor in New York, ending an unprecedented standoff between Barr and U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman, who had resisted being removed from his post. We never really learned exactly why, and this was botched. I mean, the standoff was because Barr tried to fire him himself, failed at that effort because he didn't have set authority, got Trump to do it for him, in an odd sort of inverse of that working relationship. But do you have questions about what might have been quashed under Barr in terms of other investigations that we don't know about?
Certainly, and I think that the concern at the time was that that Berman was being dispatched in a way to cripple investigations that were going on in his office, and I think they also may have tried to replace his number two. And the way that ended up getting resolved is his number two ended up taking over the office, at least for a period of time. But this case may have been one of those that he was concerned would be made to go away. There are continuing questions about that, as well as about other investigations that under the Barr Justice Department were fast-tracked. Andy McCabe, for example, the investigation into him was put on a fast track by the Inspector General so that he could be sanctioned before his pension fully vested. Those kind of things just bring the department under ill repute. And no doubt Merrick Garland will have a lot of cleaning up to do.
I want to ask you about your work as on the Intelligence Committee. Is it different now that the intel chiefs have testified to our tragic new reality, that the gravest threats to our country are domestic violent extremists? And currently, under the threat warning that we know about, they're radicalized by the big lie still being repeated by Donald Trump, I believe 6 times since last week, and some of the COVID restrictions, where he was also a leading agitator, sending out tweets like liberate Michigan and liberate Virginia.
You know, it does affect the work of our committee, certainly. I think all of the, the domestic agencies that have a portfolio that includes domestic terrorism have to prioritize it, like FBI and DHS. We have the responsibility of overseeing the intelligence component of that. And we were already doing an investigation last year into politicization of intelligence at DHS, where one whistleblower was alleging that instructions were being given essentially to downplay the seriousness of domestic terror committed by white nationalists and to hype the threat from Antifa. And we saw, that come from people like Bill Barr and others in the leadership of the last administration. But we just had a hearing on this subject. And I can tell you one of the ongoing challenges is a lot of the Republican members didn't think that our committee or the intelligence agencies, even those like the FBI and DHS that have a responsibility here, should be looking at this. And that's quite remarkable. If we were looking at the threat of Islamic terror, the threat from within, there would be no reservation about that among my GOP colleagues, but they were very uncomfortable, clearly, with the FBI and DHS looking at the problem of white nationalism and domestic terror.
So I was a member of the Republican Party in good standing after 9/11, and I can't fathom those Republicans having that hear no evil, see no evil, do nothing about the evil response to 9/11. You're right. If the threat, when the threat was foreign terrorism, there was not enough that they could do. There was no measure too aggressive. And my question is, can you protect this country with one of the two major political parties refusing to recognize the threat?
Well, I have to hope that there's enough common ground. Look, I have concerns to make sure that our agencies like the FBI and DHS aren't, just trolling the internet, and that we make sure that we don't do anything to curb First Amendment freedoms. And so there are many Democrats like myself that share those concerns. At the same time, we ought to be able to find bipartisan common ground that the predominant terrorism threat facing the country right now is a domestic threat. And the predominant part of that domestic threat is the white nationalist threat. And that white nationalist threat also has international, transnational links as well. And we can't ignore that because of a political sensitivity that some of these folks are part of the Trump base. So I hope we can find common ground. We're going to need to make sure we protect the country.
President Biden has found a way to redefine bipartisanship to mean that which is supported by Republican Americans and Democratic Americans. And his COVID relief package maintained very high approval ratings among all Americans. It seems to be a model that they may deploy. What are you hoping to hear from him tonight?
I think that is exactly the right strategy, frankly. And one of the things that it reveals is just what a break there is between the Republican leadership in Congress and Republican mayors, Republican governors, and just ordinary Republican American citizens. Because so much of what was in the rescue plan is very popular among many Republicans in the country, and likewise with the infrastructure package. So I think he should do more of the same, continue to reach out to Republicans in Congress. But if they're unwilling, if they adopt the attitude Mitch McConnell did with Barack Obama, that their primary goal is to make him a failure, even if it hurts the country, then the president has to go his own way and appeal to both Democrats and Republicans at large in the country. I expect tonight we'll hear about his successes in fighting the pandemic, the acceleration of the vaccine rollout, but also sound an alarm that, other countries around the world are experiencing surges. If we don't get ourselves sufficiently vaccinated and don't develop the kind of herd immunity that we need, we could have other waves in this country. The virus could mutate and get around our vaccines. So we're awfully close to putting the worst of this behind us, but we can't let up. And I think that will be a central part of his message.
Congressman Adam Schiff, it's a pleasure to get to spend some time with you today. Thank you for making time for us. We're grateful.
Thank you.